I think we're going to begin. And today I chose a sutta that there's not a lot to analyze in, perhaps, but there might be a lot to discuss because I think it points towards um, the appreciation that there are so many different ways to meditate. And meditation is something that we need to use our intuition towards. It's not a system of techniques that are prescribed in advance. It's something that is a conversation in a way with the body and the mind and the emotional world. So we can learn to check in with ourselves, to heed our mind's moods or what it needs at any one time, and find practices that work for us. And sometimes that might even mean finding our own practices that aren't necessarily listed in the suttas. So for that, of course, it's important to have an understanding of the general direction that this path is leading in, and of course, of the Eightfold Path. The Buddha said somewhere in the suttas that wherever you find people practicing the Eightfold Noble Path, you will find enlightened beings. So that was in response to a question about whether people from other traditions or religions can get enlightened. And he said, basically, yes, so long as they're following the Eightfold Noble Path, which of course includes right view. And this is one of the places that views may differ and therefore not necessarily lead to the goal that the Buddha's speaking about, unless we've understood suffering and its cause and the end and the path towards that end completely. But it does mean that there's a lot of scope for experimentation, creativity, and integration, really, of all of these path factors. And that means we can integrate meditation into every aspect of our life. In other words, practice is not just sitting on the cushion. Otherwise, most of us are pretty stuffed. Especially if you find yourself sitting at a computer desk, or I don't know what else you might find yourself doing much more of than sitting on a cushion. So practice is practice of the whole Eightfold Path. And in this particular sutta, we do talk about the practice of the satipatthanas, which are one aspect of that path, namely the sati, the samasati aspect of the path, which of course are completely supported by the other aspects of the path. So that you have no more suspense, the sutta that we're going to do today is from the Samyutta Nikaya, so that's SN for short, chapter 47, the Satipatthana Samyutta, number 8, and hopefully, number 8, part 1 and part 2. Actually, it's quite helpful because it's called the cook. And the first part is the incompetent cook, and the second part is the competent cook. I have a competent cook on my right. And I have other competent cooks in here as well. In fact, everyone at Onam campus seems to be a competent cook, at least in the kitchen. I don't know if they're competent cooks of their minds. So now we're going to learn how to be competent cooks and not to be incompetent cooks in our meditation practice. So thank you very much, Manui, for putting the sutta reference in. I do have, for once, Bhante Sujato's translation as well. I'm going to read from the Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, and then I'll come to Bhante Sujato for a couple of words that I quite like. So here we go. I'll read out, and for the sake of Dilrangi, who's here for the first time, maybe others as well. I'm going to read out most of it, probably, and perhaps make a few small comments before we open up for some discussion so we can really make this come alive for ourselves in ways that help ourselves. So don't feel you have to stick rigidly to the linguistic meaning or to the sutta itself even, but use this as a kind of stimulation or inspiration to talk about what's happening for you in your practice right now, and maybe to bring in a little bit more intuition into your practice life. So here we go. And as usual, I'm going to change the gender so that it's inclusive. So here it does talk to monastics. Sometimes I might use the word monastic, sometimes community. So we're all included there. Monastics. Suppose a foolish, incompetent, unskillful cook were to present a king or queen or royal minister with various kinds of curries: sour, bitter, pungent, sweet, sharp, mild, salty, bland. It's not good to speak about this in the evening, is it? Because monastics don't get to eat curry in the evening. That foolish, oh, no, yes, sorry, here we go. That foolish, incompetent, unskillful cook does not pick up the sign of his own master's preference. So let's just say master can be any gender for now. Today, this curry pleased my master, or they reached for this one, or they took a lot of this one, or they spoke in praise of this one, or the sour curry pleased my master today, or they reached for the sour one, or they took a lot of the sour one, or they spoke in praise of the sour one, or the bitter one, or the pungent one, or the sweet one, or the sharp curry, or the mild curry, or the salty curry, or the bland curry pleased my master. And where's the little refrain? Or they reached for this one, or they took a lot of this one, or they spoke in praise of this one. Okay. So they have no idea, basically. They're not watching or attending to the person they're supposed to be serving here. That foolish, incompetent, unskillful cook does not gain gifts of clothing, wages, and bonuses. For what reason? Because that foolish, incompetent, unskillful cook does not pick up the sign of their own master's preference. And I think Bhante Sujato uses the word hint, does not pick up the hint, which I quite like. Why is that? Because they don't take their master's hint. So there are hints, there are signs that we can look out for and pick up on if we're attentive and if we're skillful and presumably not foolish and competent. So here's the simile. So too, monastics or community, here some foolish, incompetent, unskillful monastic or meditator dwells contemplating the body in the body, ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful. Okay, I have to change this translation. Having removed covetousness and displeasure in regard to the world. Now, this actually means, what is it? I'm very tired now, so basically it means the first two hindrances. So it's not a very good translation because covetousness and displeasure in regard to the world is kind of abstract, to say the least, but it really means the first of the 5 hindrances. And Ajahn Brahmali and other scholar monks who've studied this in depth basically have found that whenever the first 2 of a group are mentioned, the rest of the group is implied. So really what that means is that somebody is practicing without having removed the hindrances. And in regard to the world means the world of the senses. So the world of sight, sound, smells, tastes, and touches. So that's what it means here. While this person dwells contemplating the body in the body, their mind does not become stilled. Again, I'm changing the translation from concentrated. Their corruptions are not abandoned. They do not pick up that sign. Okay, so the one we've talked about already is the first of the 4 satipatthanas, contemplating the body in the body. And this is a kind of Pali idiom. Kaye kayanupassi viharati, one dwells contemplating body in body. But what it really means is just contemplating the body directly as an experience. Yeah, so you're not contemplating the body mentally, you're not contemplating the body through memory or through pictures or through kind of concepts of the body, but you're actually observing the body directly. And the second of the satipatthanas, one dwells contemplating feelings in feelings. So that's Vedana, Vedana, Vedananupasi Viharati. So in the Vedana, you observe the Vedana. In other words, you're directly experiencing feelings. Yeah. And I'll repeat the whole of the paragraph because here we have abbreviations. So while they dwell contemplating feelings in the feelings, their mind does not become stilled, their corruptions are not abandoned, and they do not pick up that sign. The next one dwells contemplating mind in mind, ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed the 5 hindrances in regard to the world of the senses. When they dwell contemplating mind in the mind, their mind does not become stilled, their corruptions are not abandoned, they do not pick up that sign. And lastly, one dwells contemplating phenomena in phenomena. So this is Dhamma. It basically means any kind of mental content. So when we dwell contemplating thoughts or ideas or the Four Noble Truths or any of the teachings of the Buddha, that's a kind of phenomena. So one dwells contemplating phenomena in phenomena, which means directly. Ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed the hindrances, especially those first 2, in regard to the world of the senses. When they dwell contemplating phenomena in phenomena, their mind does not become concentrated or stilled, is a better translation. Their corruptions are not abandoned. They do not pick up that sign. That foolish, incompetent, unskillful person does not gain pleasant dwellings in this very life, nor do they gain mindfulness and clear comprehension. That's sati sampajana or sampajanya. For what reason? Because that foolish, incompetent, unskillful person does not pick up the sign of their own mind. Is this making sense to people here? Yeah. So when it says they do not pick up that sign, it kind of means that we don't really know what we're doing. We're not really noticing that the practice we're doing isn't working. In other words, it's not helping us abandon the hindrances. It's not helping us remove, it's not helping us abandon the, I think corruptions is the asavas, so the taints of the mind, the outflowings of the mind. The mind is not becoming more and more peaceful. And we don't have this clear comprehension of mindfulness developing in our mind. Yeah? In other words, we're not seeing that the practice isn't leading in the right direction. So shall I keep reading about the competent cook? Yeah, and then we can have discussion. I suppose monastics or practitioners, a wise, competent, skillful cook were to present a queen or a royal minister with various kinds of curries: sour, bitter, pungent, sweet, sharp, mild, salty, bland. That wise, competent, skillful cook picks up the signs of their own master's preference. Today, this curry pleased my master, or they reached for this one, or they took a lot of this one, or they spoke in praise of this one. And that applies to all these different categories. They reached or spoke in praise, or were pleased by the sour curry or by the bitter one, the pungent, the sweet, the sharp, the mild, the salty, or the bland one. That wise, competent, skillful cook gains gifts of clothing, wages, and bonuses. For what reason? Because that wise, competent, skillful cook picks up the signs of their own master's preference. So too, monastics or practitioners, here some wise, competent, skillful meditators dwell contemplating the body in the body, ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed the first 2 hindrances and consequently all 5, in regard to the world of the senses. When they dwell contemplating the body in the body, their mind becomes stilled, or it attains samadhi, we could say. Their corruptions are abandoned. They pick up that sign. They dwell contemplating feelings in feelings. Ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed the hindrances. When they dwell contemplating feelings in feelings, their mind becomes stilled or serene, we could say. Their corruptions are abandoned. They pick up that sign. They dwell contemplating mind in mind, the third satipatthana. Ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed the hindrances in regard to the world of the senses. When they dwell contemplating mind in mind, their mind becomes stilled, their corruptions are abandoned, they pick up that sign. And so too for phenomena. One dwells observing phenomena in phenomena, ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed having removed the first two hindrances and all the hindrances in regard to the world. When they dwell contemplating phenomena in phenomena, their mind becomes stilled, their corruptions are abandoned, they pick up that sign. That wise, competent, skillful practitioner gains pleasant dwellings in this very life, and they gain mindfulness and clear comprehension. For what reason? Because that person, because monastics, or because community, that wise, competent, skillful practitioner picks up the sign of their own mind. And just to go back to Vantasajata's translation again, he says, instead of saying they don't pick up the sign, or they pick up the sign of their own mind, he translates it as, what is it? Because they take their mind's hint, which I quite like, because it doesn't make much sense, like pick up the sign of the mind, right? You think you're picking something up externally, but what it's really talking about is that we need to notice what's happening in our mind, and we need to work with our mind and not against it. So we pick up the mind's hint as to what kind of food is nourishing it at any one time. What is pleasing to the mind? What is the mind reaching for, we could say, right? What else does it say here? What is the mind speaking in praise of? Have you ever tried to meditate and sort of make the mind do what you think it should? You know, you think, okay, I haven't really kind of got this method sorted out. You know, I haven't really got my anapanasati together. I'm going to sit and meditate on the breath. But we haven't been a competent cook. We haven't looked into our mind and noticed what it enjoys, what it likes, what it's inclined towards, what it reaches towards. Maybe sometimes it's actually repelled from the breath, you know, or from the body, or from a particular kind of meditation subject. And if we keep on trying to force the mind in that direction, the mind will rebel, the mind will not like it, it won't be pleased. So just as we tend to each other, just as a skillful cook would tend to their, I suppose in here it's saying master, but it could be someone you really respect or love. You know, it could be your partner, it could be a dinner party for a friend, it could be serving a monastic sangha if you're lucky enough to be in a monastery with monastics you respect. You want to notice what it is that's pleasing them, what it is that's nourishing them. And it's exactly the same for the mind. So can we treat our own mind the way we treat someone we really respect, and actually notice what it's drawn to, what it needs, what pleases it, what uplifts it, and have a little bit of trust that that's going to work. So I think this is a very interesting sutta. It's not so much a sutta. It does give the example of the Satipatthana practice. But by giving the example of the Satipatthana practices, it's actually saying that sometimes they don't work, right? Sometimes it doesn't work to observe, to do body contemplation. Breath meditation is part of observing the body. Other kind of body contemplations are like observing the bodily parts, or the funeral ground, charnel ground contemplations of the body when it starts to decompose, when the limbs get scattered, when the bones turn to dust. If the mind is actually not picking that up, it's not helpful for the mind at a given time, then we need to stop what we're doing and actually tune in, take the mind's hint, yeah, or take the sign that it's not working, notice it's not working, and try something else. So maybe then we try with contemplation of feelings, yeah, observing the aspect of feeling which is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Sometimes we might be practicing metta because it worked previously, but we haven't spent time getting to know our mind in its current state. And we practice this metta as a kind of way of trying to push away something that's difficult, or trying to, I don't know, gain something, and the mind it just isn't working for whatever reason that might be. So how do we know what kind of meditation method to use? How do we learn to be more attuned to our mind? It'd be really interesting to talk about this from your experience, and maybe your experience with different methods of meditation, or what it feels like to sometimes try too hard, perhaps. So I'd like to open up to some discussion and see how this might be helpful for us today. And also anyone in here who'd like to comment or say anything about their understanding of the sutta or anything else. If you just raise your hand, I'll come to you in due course. Are any of you good cooks? Is that you're a good cook, or you have something to say? Did you want to say something? Okay. Yeah. Would you mind coming closer so the mic can pick you up, and then I'll come to the people in the Zoom. That's lucky. Sometimes I have to turn my computer off and turn it back on again. Sorry about that. Okay. Oh, I like the comments in the chat. It said it's up to us now. So you were going to go for it and have a really nice debate. That's good to know. Yeah. So I'm inviting Anchi to share.
Yeah, I think what's been helpful, particularly around mindfulness of breathing, or trying to be mindful of breathing, is adjusting how I am, let's say, use the word watching the breath. Like I just have some kind of intuition if I'm being too soft or too sharp as I'm watching it. And if I'm too soft, it becomes dull,
Yeah.
like almost like there's sport of almost not controlling, but almost how much watchfulness there is.
Mm-hmm.
And then if there is too much very controlling.
Yeah.
So it's like a softness during watchfulness and sharpness during watchfulness kind of intuition. I say intuition because sometimes you don't really think it. You kind of now start to get a sense somehow.
Yeah.
So that's been helpful, actually. Tweaking, like, to try to not be too soft or too sharp.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if this adjectives make sense.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's a kind of quality of the awareness, isn't it? It's a sort of aspect of mindfulness, or a quality you bring to the way you're aware, like how much energy, how much control, like you say, how much kind of holding, how much relaxing, maybe spaciousness comes into it. Yeah. So in a sense, you're saying that what's helped you with that is sort of experiment, would you say? Experimenting to learn
I guess you have to try to be very controlling and to try to be very loose, and then you see kind of over time, gradually the effects. Not that I am perfect at it, but I've seen that it's been helpful to notice the effects of being very sharp or too loose, to get a sense of some kind of, like you said, what might be necessary at that time. That actually I'm very tense today, so I need to be much softer. But I'm very soft today, so I could be actually much sharper.
Yeah, that's great, because this is what it's talking about, isn't it? Kind of getting to take the mind's hint means notice what state of mind you're in and be directed, in a sense, be led by your mind, by what your mind needs. Just like, you know, a good chef is led by what the master needs, what pleases him, what he's inclined to. So I think that's really important, this relationship between kind of us and our minds, in a way, like befriending it. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And then over time, the intuition starts to grow based on experience. Yeah. Because sometimes I wonder, what is intuition? Sometimes it is a kind of accumulation of experience over time. That's how it's informed. It's not random. It's not just a feeling about something, but it's actually something that's come about through watching and learning and observing really carefully. So yeah.
Yeah, that also summarizes it very well. Like, I feel like I'm always learning and it's getting a bit more subtle.
Yeah, great.
And I feel like actually there's a lot of room for that, for stronger intuition and subtlety.
Yeah, great. It's the same with cooking, isn't it? I'm thinking about it because I used to like to cook before I was a nun. And sometimes it is like you need a tiny bit more salt, or you need a little bit of sugar to kind of lift the thing, or a tiny squeeze of lemon, or sometimes you need quite a bit. And then suddenly all the flavors come together and it just kind of, now it tastes good. Yeah, I think it's a little bit like that with the mind.
And I'm guessing sometimes we might be missing something completely, but we just don't know what it is because we haven't come across it.
We've been used to cooking only with salt and sugar, and we've not used any cumin or ginger. Hint, hint. Thank you very much. That's great. Yeah, it's been good. That's the subtlety of within a method, not even talking about different ones. Yeah, metta, can I come to you? I love your name because it is just like metta, but I suppose it's mette? Mette?
Yes, yeah, close enough.
Close enough.
Yeah, it's a traditional Danish name, so I'm afraid it's not. But I like the frequent misunderstandings in Buddhist contexts.
That's great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. Yeah, this reading, partly because I'm a very passionate and avid cook. Maybe that's my favorite thing to do of all things, and I absolutely love cooking for others as well. Love picking up on hints, like very much noticing what do they like, and then trying to sort of perfect it or accommodate and see how they react the next time. And so it really spoke to me. And then partly because it felt very reassuring, because it kind of strengthens the. I feel like I have quite a strong intuition of what my mind, where it wants to go in meditation practice, and mostly I let it, but sometimes I'll sort of worry, like, should I maybe not let it? Should I be more disciplined? Should I try to control it more? And I'll have the ambition of like, okay, for the next week, I'm going to do 40 minutes every day and I'm going to follow this specific meditation session. And then when I get up in the morning, I'm like, it's actually not what I feel like. And then I'll do silent meditation instead. And, kind of struggling a little bit with allowing myself to do it. Like mostly I do allow myself to go with where, like, pick up my mind's hints, but I haven't felt fully confident about it. I haven't felt quite sure if it was the right way to so this was just like reassuring and
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess to sort of have it so broadly sketched out, you know, that there's this sort of framework that you can use. Like for here, it's talking about the four satipatthanas. And to be honest, every single meditation practice will come somewhere within one of those four. If it's not something completely crazy from, I don't know, something so far away from Buddhism. But as far as I understand, whatever you're observing, it has to be the body or the mind, right? Or the contents of the mind or the feelings in the body or the mind. And so within that, we have a lot of leeway to use our creativity and intuition. And just when you were speaking about being a cook and, how you love sort of serving, waiting on others, looking at what they like, pleasing them with delicious food, and you enjoy that creative process, it made me think that perhaps that's a real, something about cooking and meditation is similar. In other words, people who are good cooks or maybe artists or musicians tend to also have that a certain quality in their practice, in their meditation practice. We're more the feely kind of people.
Yeah.
Talkative sort of people. So yeah, maybe for us it is more advisable to go with that sort of intuition that we naturally have, whereas other people do work better in a structured way. That's the way it is for them.
Yeah. And some people also work with the recipe when they cook, and other
Yes.
people work more, just
Yeah.
intuitively.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I would never have thought myself of making that comparison between cooking and I find it really, really helpful and interesting. I'm going to be thinking more of that about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, great. Because I guess the nice thing about the sutta is it's almost asking us to embrace our own kind of mind, really. Like the natural tendencies of our mind, embrace them, kind of go with them, like listen to what the mind needs at any given time. And I think really most of practice is about relationship. If you think of training the mind, it's a relationship with our mind. If you think of practicing right speech, it's a relationship with the other people we're speaking to, or how we speak to ourselves. Ethics is how we relate and treat other people through our body. So it always has to be this idea of a relationship, and that's where the liberating power of the path lies, I think. It's not in the method itself. It's not in, this prescription's going to cure things. It's nothing external that can be imposed. It has to be something in the relationship, in the way that we're being aware, in the way that we're using these methods, because they can be used for our benefit or our harm.
Which makes me wonder if I can add, if this connects to like this message that seems to be part of the Buddhist teachings, the Dharma, that you shouldn't just take anything on, like you should always test it out yourself and work with it yourself individually and see.
Yeah. It's like having enough faith to at least try something, and sometimes it might be okay to say, okay, I'm going to sit for 40 minutes, like morning and evening for the next however long. You can try it just to gather data, right? You can try what the Buddha says to see if it works. But then if you find that actually something needs adjusting, then adjust it, because the Buddha's only teaching not to get disciples, but so that you find benefit, so that you develop the wholesome states. So that's the yardstick. Is it leading to deeper peace, deeper insight, and more wholesome qualities arising in the mind? Yeah. We can only know that. I mean, it's good to take some feedback as well, but we have to know for ourselves what works, and it's different for everyone. So it's I like this as well, because it makes me realize, wow, there's so many flavors. This is more than the classic Ayurvedic list, actually. In Ayurveda, you have sour, bitter, pungent, sweet, salty, and astringent. And here we have 8. So it's a lot of flavors, and there's so many combinations, right? So in the same way, there's so many ways to practice. Even if we're all in the same kind of meditation retreat, like we used to do a lot of Goenka retreats, I did personally, and I realized that no 2 people use that technique the same way. Among thousands and hundreds of thousands and probably millions of people, there's no way that any 2 people are doing it the same. Yeah. Okay, I'll come to Alexander.
Hello. Yeah, I found for me that the body scan meditation works quite well.
Yeah.
But whenever I try to do the breath meditation, my mind just wanders every 30 seconds.
That's
And
not
I
bad.
found whenever I try to meditate when I'm feeling a bit tired, um, I think I end up just falling asleep,
Mm.
which probably isn't very helpful. But
Well, maybe you need to sleep and then meditate.
Probably. I don't know. I did meditate once in the morning,
Mm,
and I'm not entirely sure if I had a deep meditation or I fell asleep because my entire body just completely disappeared,
mhm.
and I felt so much better afterwards. But I don't quite know which state I was in.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I mean, firstly, around the question of okay, I'll start from the end because I remember the first part. So it could be that you were fairly deeply relaxed. It probably wasn't like a super deep like meditation state, or you would have come out totally high for like a long time. But it sounds as though the mind let go and the mind relaxed quite deeply. So if that felt good and if you felt more energized afterwards, great. You know, again, that's just an indication that it's leading towards more clarity, more peace. Um, Many people struggle with breath meditation, especially when, they haven't prepared the mind over a long period of time. And that means prepared the whole first 7 factors of the Eightfold Noble Path to quite a considerable degree. Breath meditation, as far as I understand, is quite an advanced practice in many ways. It's a practice that is subtler than we maybe realize, and can take us a lot deeper than maybe most of us have taken it so far. And yeah, the breath is quite a subtle object, and in the beginning, a little bit uninteresting. So if we are tired, if our mind is busy or restless, or our day's been kind of, yeah, we've been quite extroverted in the world, it's maybe not the best meditation method to take up unless you have quite some practice with it. But the body meditation is really, really helpful, especially feeling the feelings in the body. So really, we can call that Vedana, um, Vedananapassana. Um, Firstly, because it's so grounding and it helps us get in touch with how we feel, not only physically, but emotionally as well. And then secondly, doing a body scan is like you are developing some continuity of awareness, but you're able to move so the mind doesn't feel too trapped. It doesn't feel too contained. And if the mind still has that momentum of movement from the day, it's quite good to let that, not to just try and abruptly stop it, but to go with it to some extent, but to start to bring it into some direct experience that you can be aware of in the present moment. So, but yeah, body scan's fantastic. I mean, the first 14 years of my practice life, almost about 12, were pretty much 80% focused on that. I would say 80% focused on kind of body scan, and it went deep because I started to experience, the actual nature of the body and of Vedana, the nature of how it arises and passes away, and how when we're not aware of that, we react with craving or with aversion. But by being aware of that, these reactions naturally start to fade. So for me, it was, I mean, that's in a real nutshell, but it was a very powerful practice. And it was much easier for me than breath meditation. But sometimes I started with that and then went to the breath. Other times I started with the breath and then went to that and found some relief that, oh, now I'm not just contained to the breath. It's so much more interesting. I'm learning so much more about the mind. Yeah. So now for me, I actually often go to the breath later once the mind's already started to settle, after practicing metta or doing some body scan, or yeah, on retreat I can continue with breath meditation so long as it feels natural. But I think most of the time we go to the breath too soon. And that's why it's so difficult for most of us, or from time to time can be difficult. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. I do have a slightly different question, just related to the craving.
Yeah.
I was just wondering whether, like, the feelings of abandonment could perhaps be like maybe craving in a different form.
Feelings of what, sorry?
Abandonment could perhaps be, I don't know, craving in a different form because you
Feelings of
might want
abandonment.
someone to be there when they're not, but it's just a bit
Oh,
curious.
okay. Yeah. Fears of abandonment. I mean, I think it's good to ask ourselves what we need before we sort of dismiss our feelings as just craving or defilement or something like this. I think with feelings of abandonment, that it's real, it's painful, and it needs to be met. So I think rather than judging it or trying to kind of, condemn it in any way or work directly with the craving, it's good to get to know that feeling first of all. And if it's a really difficult thing to come close to practice a lot of compassion, to equip the mind to meet it. So I think, being really honest to our feelings and kind of tending to them. In a sense, we could also use this sutta in that way. Maybe the master is now feeling abandoned and you're noticing that and you're thinking, okay, so what does the master need? Does he need to be told, hey, master, you shouldn't be feeling this way, that's craving? Or does the master need to be, approached kindly with extra sweetness in the food or extra kind of comfort and softness and compassion? So yeah, whether it's a kind of craving, I'm not sure. I'm not so sure. I think we have a need as human beings for connection and belonging, and it hurts to feel abandoned, or to actually be physically or emotionally abandoned. So it's more around how can I learn to be there for myself, and that's a positive thing. That's not a craving thing. I had an interesting conversation with Ayananda Bodhi about attachment, because I was talking about my trainees and I was saying, well, I really love them actually. And I feel that's good. Like I really feel it as a genuinely beautiful quality. And I don't think it's the same as attachment. I said, is it wrong? And she said, no, it's very good. It's wonderful. And actually, we need attachment. We need secure attachment. That's one of the psychological models about what brings up a healthy person, a healthy human being, is like love, unconditional love, from at least one caregiver. Yeah, if not both, but at least enough of that we feel a sense of safety, a sense that we can thrive, we can have our basic needs met, we're worthy of happiness, etc., etc. And that, in a sense, actually reduces craving. If we have a sense of unconditional love inside ourselves, to ourselves or to others, that's genuinely strong, it's not needy, it's not clingy or dependent, then we're actually more resourced. So that if a person leaves or moves away, we're not left dejected. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely. I asked that question on behalf of someone who was struggling with that, because I gave them your answer on anxiety and they found it exceptionally helpful.
Oh,
So I will be passing it on to them as well.
oh,
So
that's
yeah,
great.
thank you very much.
Oh, and thank you for being a good friend to that person and to everyone here, because I think we all sometimes feel a sense of being abandoned. I mean, I feel it still. Definitely, I can feel that vulnerability, that I want to sort of be, just kind of held or like lean on someone, and they're not there if I need them. But it's happening less and less the more I learn to meet my own emotions, not with trying to push them away, but just with a sense of compassion and care. Yeah.
I've definitely felt ever since I found myself and felt that comfortable and secure in myself, in my own body, and with who I am as a
Yeah.
person generally, I haven't felt abandoned or those feelings, to be honest. It's kind of just sort
Yeah.
of melted away.
That's fantastic.
Relates to kind of what you were saying about like almost once you're burning buckets full, it's sort of easier to take
Yeah.
other people's.
Yes, and you can be of support to other people as well. Great. Thank you. I feel mudita.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Suzanne.
Hello. Good to see
Hi. Good to see you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you chose this sutta. I've heard it before, but I think I read it, but I didn't understand it. So now I do. So, and it has a really beautiful meaning. And yeah, I have that often that I read a sutta and it really doesn't speak to me, but when somebody explains it like you, then okay, that's what it means.
Yeah.
So I hope one day I will I don't know, when I read it, also find more into
Yeah.
more into it. So I heard Ajahn Brahm a few times say that it's also possible just to watch or to be aware of whatever comes up in the moment, not really to look for anything.
Yeah.
And yeah, and my practice for the past years has been pretty much that.
Mhm.
Just letting things arise and not doing anything with them, and then gradually it gets deeper and deeper through all these layers, and
Mm.
so that's very, for me, an easy kind of practice.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's at all what he means. I don't know. I've never had a chance to ask him.
Right.
And just I think that now I'm actually able to watch my breath. When I've been meditating for like 25 years or so, but watching my breath was really difficult.
Yeah.
But now there's enough sati that I can actually do it. And I was just on a retreat a few weeks ago with Ajahn Chatamalo, also same tradition, and I
Yeah.
was getting into watching my breath, and it was interesting. It was a really different kind of state I got into, like just to not go with whatever comes up, but to say no, I'm going to stay with my breath.
Uh-huh.
It was different. It was like a very intense stillness that
Yeah.
I experienced, and with the other practice, it's more like it because it's the phenomena always change. I mean, it gets more still, but they don't really. There's always something changing.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because your awareness is broader, probably. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it
So
can be more.
say something about these different, about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, you're completely right in sort of that's Ajahn Brahm's main approach to the practice is to sit back. I mean, sometimes we call it kind of letting things be, or just present moment awareness, just to sit back in the kind of seat of the mind, so to speak, and just allow whatever arises to be there, and just to stay present with it without really interfering at all. And in this way, what we're doing is kind of starving this doing part of the mind, the sankhara part of the mind, and allowing more energy to start building into the mindfulness, allowing mindfulness to just build. You're kind of being more concerned in a sense with awareness, with mindfulness, with just being present than you are with whatever's arising in the mind. So you're not being pulled by the things that arise. So I think that is exactly, I mean, I don't know in detail exactly what you're doing, but it sounds very similar to what he means by starving the doer and letting the energy flow into the knower, which means mindfulness gets strong. And it's with that empowered mindfulness that you can pick up an object like the breath and just allow the mindfulness to start kind of, what's the word, kind of gathering around the breath and seeing more and more in the breath, and feeling more and more drawn to the breath, and then allowing the mind to go into the breath. And that sounds to me like what was happening to you. You sort of, I don't know if you made an actual decision to do that, but it seems like you somehow decided to stay with the breath. Maybe the mind wanted to stay with the breath and it was easy to do so. And then the mind will naturally become stiller because there's less diversity of awareness, diversity of attention. So Ajahn Brahm definitely talks about, in the beginning, developing this present moment awareness really strongly, but then eventually to get into deeper states of stillness, samadhi, letting the diversity go. So you're moving from diversity to unity. And the breath becomes a kind of bridge from, the world of the senses into the world of the mind. So yeah, that sounds like a very natural progression, and hopefully it was enjoyable and empowering.
It was very, I mean, enjoyable. I don't know. It was really like, it's surprising. Like, wow.
Yeah, quite profound.
The breath wasn't really there anymore. That
Yeah.
was gone.
Yeah,
It was like in a white cloud of stillness.
beautiful.
That was never experienced that before.
Oh, beautiful.
I mean, I like the other experiences too. But yeah, it's, maybe you're right. That's more the path to go deeper into, like, actually into a jhana.
Yeah.
I think I was quite in it, but maybe right before or so.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
but, yeah, good to hear.
Yeah, that's where we can explore, you know, what happens if I just let go a little bit more. If I just sit a bit longer, you know, if I just really kind of surrender to that brightness, that white cloud, what happens next? But I mean, don't think about next. It's a subtle thing. We have to basically continue to allow the mind to kind of simplify and be content with something even more subtle, even more simple.
Mhm.
Yeah, but all experience in meditation is really useful information for the mind. So yeah, it seems like you're opening up possible paths to go deeper in samadhi as well. So yeah,
Mhm.
good. Anumodana. I'm going to come to the chat now. There's a comment here. So lately I'm in the habit before sitting of suggesting different kinds and durations of meditation to myself and observing how I feel in response. So this is interesting. Some suggestions create a feeling of resistance, some are neutral, and some create a feeling of release. Of course, I follow the release. That's because you're wise. Not everybody does. This has really helped my practice and keeps it from conflicting with my health and well-being. That's fantastic, because really what you're talking about here is the how. And I think that's a point I wanted to touch on. It's like, okay, so we tend to the mind, we take the mind's hint, but how? How do we even get in touch with the hint of the mind? How do we even hear what the mind's trying to tell us? And this is a very skillful way to do that. You actually experiment. You offer the mind a different dish, if you like. Would you like, you know, I don't know, a super meditation? Probably not. Would you like some metta meditation? Sometimes it just doesn't fit, you know. Would you like to scan the body? And this is very wise. I mean, I was on a long retreat in Perth after many years of meditation, but I had much less guidance and a lot more solitude than I'd ever had before. And I asked Ajahn Brahm once, you know, what do you think? You know, sometimes you just want to ask, am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing something else? You know, maybe more metta. And he said, ask the mind what it wants. And I just thought that was so wonderful, because this is how we develop a sense of independence, really, in the practice, right? Ask your mind what it wants. And I used to literally do that, maybe not so much by suggesting various things, but just by literally asking my mind, how are you? What do you feel like today? But yeah, sometimes it would sort of say, oh, not really this, or a bit of this. And I'd be like, okay. And then there'd be like an intentional kind of listening and receiving that information. So the mind felt really happy and really respected. And sometimes I'd also ask the body what it wanted as well. And sometimes the body actually wanted to relax more, or maybe sit up straighter, or whatever it was. And then I learned to sort of get those body, mind, emotions working together as a team. It sounds really silly, but I even had little names for my body, a name for my breath, a name for the mind. Sometimes I'd say, mind, do you want to watch the breath? And they had names, you know. It's like, no, not really, not right now. Okay, no problem. So yeah, you can get these parts of yourself talking to each other. So some suggestions create a feeling of resistance, some are neutral, and some a feeling of release. Excellent. Of course, I follow the release. I love that sentence, because actually I think a lot of people will follow the resistance. You know, I don't know, is that true? Am I right? Sometimes we think, oh, I don't want to do that. That means it's good for me. That means I should. I'm not good at it. I should get better. So I love that you allow yourself to do that. And that's the Buddha's advice to Mahapajapati and also to Upali in the suttas, if you want to look those suttas up. Whatever leads to peace, freedom, liberation, which is another word for release. Follow that. This is the Dhamma. You can know that's the Dhamma and Vinaya. And this has really helped your practice and keeps it from conflicting with your health and well-being. So yeah, it seems like the body and the mind are in harmony there, which is great. And then you're saying if you'd known about this sutta, maybe you would have arrived at this much sooner. Maybe, but sometimes we don't really. It's like a process of picking up data, isn't it, over time? So we can't really know, but hopefully that's why by having these sort of discussions, we can kind of get new tips and hints and understandings. And I think one reason is not necessarily because I say anything that helps you have more clarity, but it's the fact that we look at it for a whole hour and a bit more. You know, we're really kind of contemplating what we're reading, whereas if we just pick the book up ourselves, it takes 5 minutes to read. You just read it, okay, done with that, move to the next page. It's more an intellectual reading, but here we're contemplating it quite deeply. So that's, I think, where its power lies. So I'm coming to Sutta Samaneri, and then we're almost out of time. Hi.
Hi, good evening.
Evening.
Very stimulating conversation. And I think the last piece of information crystallized what's been happening to me in my meditation since October 2024. I think maybe about, 30 years of Anapanasati, or before that, other breath styles in Zen, etc. I find to invite the mind that's pleasant here, and I'm very happy to welcome you. And then it sort of comes in front of the body was an instruction I received 2024, and this was so vitalizing for me. I mean, I just never thought about it, except years ago in Taiwan. I had a Theravada teacher who instructed like that, but I forgot. With everything going on in the last, 25 years, I don't know.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, yeah, I remember that. Mind within mind. Okay. And now the breath spontaneously deepens on its own.
Great.
Which has also been very revitalizing to me.
Yeah.
I don't have to set up a script for my breath. It just comes.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. So you're actually inviting the mind, you're saying, to be with you, like inviting the mind that this is a beautiful place to be, you're welcome. Yeah. That's so nice. It's like treating the mind and speaking to the mind with a great deal of respect, isn't it? And assurance, reassurance. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Any last small comments or questions? We've got about a minute before I'm going to hand to Minori for the announcements. And yeah, someone's asking for the dates of the Sutta teaching as well. Yeah. Any last thing? I actually like this comment. I love this because it was about me dropping out, but my internet collapsed for about a minute, but somebody wrote the 5 words, "It's up to us now." And that's great, isn't it? We could apply that to our practice. It's up to us now. Now we've had this teaching. It's up to us to tend to our mind, to treat our mind kindly, to know what it's drawn to know what it fancies, and to know whether, by giving it that food, giving it that method, giving it that type of awareness or practice or effort, whether it's actually causing mindfulness and clear comprehension, sati sampajanya, to increase, whether it's actually causing the 5 hindrances to decrease. This is the mark of, getting still. A practice that's working is starting to overcome these 5 hindrances. Yeah. And then what else starts to happen? Our mind starts to become still. And eventually we can abandon the defilements of the mind. So this is the trajectory of our practice. So yes, follow that release. And someone said the mind affects the body and the body affects the mind. Yes, absolutely. It's inseparable. We live in a body. It's going to affect our mind. You know this when you have a chronic condition. You know that sometimes you feel, I don't know, down, and it's because your stomach's playing up. But if you can, actually try to tend to your physical health, then the mind feels at least happier for that. I love this session, really precious reminders. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for so much tasty cooking. Yay, this is how monastics can eat an evening meal. So thank you very much. Yeah. Hi, Manori.
Yeah, thank you, Venerable, so much for your teachings and unpacking that little sutta into so much of a deeper level and answering all our questions. And for us, I like to say a few words about the beautiful enabling quality of generosity. So giving goes against a stream of wanting and collecting, and it develops wholesome qualities that form a foundation of our Dhamma practice. And Buddha said that the wisest way to give is when one gives with a heart full of joy, for the purpose of beautifying the mind, for equipping the mind, for the practice of serenity and insight. Anguttara 8.33. Generosity can also be a practice of checking in deeply with us, like what it is like to give, not for me, but for benefit of all, and not expecting anything in return. So here at Anukampa, we offer several ways that you can cultivate this beautiful quality, financially and non-financially both. And financially, you can do a one-time donation, any amount. And the link is there on the chat now. The link will take you to either a bank transfer, PayPal, or a sum up through our website. And you can do a regular donation through our banking, from the same thing through your banking, giving a standing orders. And
Sorry, I think you muted. I think I might have pressed that by accident. Sorry, Manoi.
And in our website, there is a place for gift aid as well. So if you are a UK donor, we can get another 20% from the gift aid. And the non-financial methods are providing meals to the monastics because they don't handle money, they don't do cooking. So you can, if you live close by, you can visit. You have to email team@anukampaproject.org, and then you can discuss, book a time, find out the address, and so on. Or else, if you live far away, you can do online meal delivery as well. And there is another thing for sending groceries, for household items, or any other monastic needs as well. And you can, if you haven't done yet, you can register for the newsletter. So you get all these things. You get the retreats and information on retreats and other information, the regular teachings, links, all that in the newsletter. Ajahn Brahm's retreat and the talks are coming soon, end of June, and keep in touch with them. And the metta sessions continue tomorrow and the week after. After that, it will start in July after Ajahn Brahm's visit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I was just writing down Ajahn Brahm's dates here, and also the next two Sutta discussions. And then I realized these are not just the next two, these are the last two for quite some time. But you will not be left in the lurch. What's going to happen is I'll be here next Friday, and then after Ajahn Brahm's visit, so on Friday the 4th of July, is it that there are 3 metta sessions left then? One tomorrow, and then the following week on the 14th, and then one in July. Yes, I think so. It's on the website. And after that, on the 6th of July already, is it? 6th of July already. We're having the first of our guest monastic talks. Is that Bhante Sujato? Ayya Adimutti. I'll be here. I'll still be here, but I'll be packing for my long retreat. So yeah, we have a program throughout the summer months of guest monastic teachers, starting with Ayya Adimutti. There's about 8 or 9 bhikkhunis, and there's 2 bhikkhus, Bhante Sujato and Ajahn Brahmali, and lots of bhikkhunis. So Ayya Adimutti, the following week is Bhante Sujato for a couple of weeks, actually, on kind of his type of stuff. There's a whole variety, and you're going to hear loads and loads of different voices, loads of different teachers, especially bhikkhunis. So that should be really, really good. So I hope that will nourish you. It'll be for an hour and a half on a Sunday, either 9 a.m. UK time or 7:30 p.m. depending on the monastics' time zones. So it changes week by week. So please check. And there'll be like a half-hour guided meditation, half an hour Dhamma talk, and half an hour Q&A, something like that. So I'm hoping that'll be really good. I counted it. There's about 15 sessions. So I think you're all going to really look forward to me being on retreat, because you get all this loads and loads of Dhamma talks in my absence. So yeah, thank you very much for all your support, and hopefully see some of you in person very soon. And I'll see you tomorrow morning if you can come along. Take care, everybody. Enjoy your next meal.